yeah, don't get me wrong, take some advice, listen to people. But when you're on this journey of setting out and building your own brand, you've got to ultimately believe in yourself and what you're doing. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter what anybody else is going to say. If you don't believe in number one, you're not going to make it work.
Okay, and welcome to another spotlight session on the Content in Business podcast. Today we have Phil Hall, who's co-founder of Residential Living Recruitment, who harnessed 45 years of experience in the property industry to power the next generation of residential living workforce. That sounds pretty epic, but here we have. Thank you for taking the time to join us, Phil.
No, thanks for having me, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Really good to have you. Okay, so I guess first and foremost, if you could just tell us a bit more about the business, it sounds really exciting.
Yeah, Residential Living Recruitment is a small boutique recruitment agency that has only been trading for just coming up to a year. And the foremost, so myself and my business partner, Matt, we set the business up, just kind of with 20 years of recruitment experience each, kind of looking at things a little bit differently. What did we want to bring to the market? What did we want to do differently? And if you look at our website, the key theme for us is trust. And that kind of trickles down through the whole organization, from the people that work for us, how we interact with one another, kind of how we work as an organization. So we don't have fixed hours as employees. We're not a 9 to 5 organization. People can work whenever and wherever they want to a degree. And we focus on the residential living space. So kind of when Matt and I were coming up with the name of the business, kind of my term was RONSIL. Let's just say what it does. Hence Residential Living Recruitment, or RLR for short. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite we're going around the houses about different names, and we came back to that. But we focus on the living space, so assets across the country that house people. And there's, broadly speaking, 3 key areas for us, which is purpose-built student accommodation, and then build-to-rent space, which is homes and flats across the UK that are built for the sole purpose of renting, and people can't buy them. It's a huge space that's up and coming across the country. And then the traditional leasehold market, which is where people would buy a home and live in it. So we actually put the people that do 2 things. One, look after the actual building itself. So that would typically be like facilities managers, maintenance operatives. And then the other part is the individuals that look after the people actually that live within those buildings. So community managers, resident services, customer services, front desk, lettings and leasing individuals. And that's kind of our core. So we're very bespoke in what we do. And yeah, that's it, in a nutshell.
No, sounds good. And you said you've been...
Does that make sense, or did I waffle on?
No, absolutely. That's really clear. Like your name. Got it straight out. I guess you say you're coming up to a year, you said.
So technically we started in March. So yeah, just under 11, what's that, 10 and a half months we've been trading. So yeah. It's still very early days in our journey. But it's been a very exciting roller coaster, shall we say, those first 10 and a half months, as I'm sure you can appreciate, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the outside in, it's amazing that it's only been that long, because I see a lot of what you do on LinkedIn and your team's grown a lot in that time. So so you're coming up to a year. Has it been what you expected from sort of setup to now, or has it been different to how you first anticipated?
It has in some parts. I think so. In the 20 years that I've been involved in recruitment, 18 of that was with a established public sector brand that I learned a hell of a lot through those years. You know, when I came out as a graduate, and my first proper job really, and then moved my way up to a fairly senior position within that organisation. And I think I thought I knew what to do, and I thought I had all the skills and capabilities to set up a company and move it forwards. And I think the reality is very different. Yes, you can look at a P&L and work out, if you're going to make money or not. But a P&L is effectively a forecast, isn't it? And you don't, after you only update that month actual once that month has finished.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you put all these things together, you put all these grand plans together is my point. And what's particularly when you set up a brand new organization, the reality of what happens over those first 12 months particularly is very different. So I think that the kind of like the CRM that we use, the setting up the website, the branding, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about, the marketing side of things, that was kind of fairly straightforward and structured, and went according to plan. Things took a little bit longer, as I guess they always do. But actually forecasting the performance of the business was a little more challenging because, I set out at the beginning kind of thinking in 6 months, I'll either be continuing to do this or I'll be going back into employment where I'll have a salary. And that was the reality. I was talking to my wife and saying, this is a risk. And you put the numbers together and you're right. Okay, if everything goes to plan, hopefully we'll come out with X. But it's the biggest learn for me is actually just allowing yourself to take that risk and embracing it and knowing that some things are going to go well and some things are not going to go as well.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And 9 times out of 10, you can get over the hurdles and move it forwards.
I think with anything, often if the risk
again
isn't scary enough or the goals aren't lofty enough, it's not a big enough dream. And you clearly put something in there that sounded, this is a push, but we're going to work hard together.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at a time in my career, I think where, well, not, I think I know I needed to do that. And I think more people should do it, because it's exhilarating. It's scary, but you're in control of your own destiny. You're not trying to impress a CEO or an MD or an owner of an organization, which, is fine, and I had 18 years of that. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time. But I think for me and what I needed to do and what motivations I had inside me to go out and try and do this on my own, is what I needed to fulfill. And, again, Rob, I'm not getting carried away here. We're not even a year in. So, it's great and it's been fun. And we've got but we're only really scratching the surface and we've got a hell of a long way to go.
Yeah, I guess, lots of companies don't get as far as you've got, which is worth acknowledging. What do you think, you're still going, you're growing.
Yeah.
What's got you this far, do you think?
Great question. So in the company, as I said, there's myself and Matt that founded the organization and then 2 others. So there's only 4 of us. And I don't, we're here today, still trading, still working hard. I've had a meeting with the guys this morning, because collectively we all pull together in the same direction. I've worked in big teams in the past where, you can get individuals that that don't. And it's actually quite rare to get everybody pulling in the same direction at the same time. And I think that's the key to our success and our continued success is that kind of value that we all have and that all come from, all have that foundation to actually to make this work. I don't put it down to me having some super skill or one of the other guys having some superior skill that's made this work. We're all actually very different individually. And again, I think that is a good thing to have in particularly a small organization. You're not all doing the same thing. You all pull in the same direction, but adding different things to the organization that collectively make it work, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. It really does.
I think that's quite important.
Yeah, 100%. I think with, our team's very small as well, and we can't afford for anybody sort of to be not on that same ethic, that work sort of attitude, have our values. We've got all quite clear values as people. We make sure that we recruit on value. It's something you probably, talking about recruitment now, but when we recruit our team,
definitely.
They could be the most skilled person in the world. If they don't match our company values, then that's a non-starter because we are small relatively and we need everyone to be on the same page and pulling the same direction.
Yeah, it's the hardest. It's the hardest thing for whether it's you, Rob, as a business owner scaling your business, or Residential Living Recruitment, or the countless organisations that I've worked with over the years in terms of hiring. That's the hardest thing when you go through an interview process with a client and a candidate. Is in actual fact, it's a very small piece of time that people invest in finding those individuals for their organisation, and trying to establish somebody's values is the hardest part. And a lot of people just go on you talk to many people and say, "I'll go on my gut feel." My gut feel is that person's going to be right for our organisation, and that is one part of it, but a small part. You need to spend a little bit of time to understand an individual, what they're like, what their intrinsic values. Is quite hard, and it takes a little bit of time to see and understand that.
Yeah, no, completely. So
sorry, I'm getting into the weeds of a recruitment process.
I like it. This is fascinating. I love it. So you're relatively new. We've established that you're going places. You're coming up to your first year. Lots of businesses don't get there. So what's the vision and the dream? Because nobody sits down with a friend that you've known for so long, say in Matt as an example, to create something that's okay. I'm sure there's a dream and a vision of where you're trying to get to and what you want this business to become.
Yeah, there is, right? And I'll be very honest with this, is I've done many business plans, as I'm sure you have over the years, to various different people. Phil, let's put together a 12-month, a 36-month, and a 5-year business plan. Where's it going to be in 5 years? And I can honestly say, Rob, 99% of the time, those haven't come to fruition for various different reasons, and things always take a slightly different path when you're talking about those timescales. Now, it is important to have a vision and what you want to, what you're going to go out and achieve. But I think it's baby steps for us, and not getting carried away. I'm not going to sit here and say to you, I want a 50-man recruitment business, man or woman recruitment business, to kind of take to market and sell in 5 years' time. That's kind of finger in the air job. I think our vision is to deliver a quality service in what we set out to do every single day. And, again, I'm not speaking ill of any other recruitment agencies out there, but I think there is an opinion of recruiters in general that is not fantastic, and not driven by a quality service. So first and foremost, we have to deliver that. And that's what we do. we work with a handful of clients. We don't work with anywhere near every single operator in our small sector that we operate in. And that's because we want to deliver a quality service. Now, we might not be the cheapest. I know we're not the cheapest, but we can back up our pricing model that we have, our service that we deliver, the tech that we offer to our clients. And that's the most important thing to me. So there's some other things that we want to achieve in the not too distant future. There could be other brands that operate in slightly different sectors that may or may not come to fruition. But I think at the moment, I've learned over the years to just try and keep it simple and not get carried away with saying, we want to get to X million, X people, X valuation and all that type of jazz. That's great. But I think you've got to take your time. You've got to build your foundation well and not get carried away. And it's baby steps. And that's where we are at the moment. We're 10 and a half months in. And I think, we've had a better first year's trading than what we originally planned, which is great. But again, you can, it's a roller coaster, and you can have a really good 3, 4, 5, 6 months trading period. And then the next 6 could be not what you hoped. So you just got to, I think, be measured. And that's what we're doing at the moment, is just taking our time and not rushing it, and see where we end up, Rob.
It's good.
A key thing for us is that our flexible work and everything like that, that one of the things we haven't got is an office at the moment, and we're quite proud of that, I guess, is one way of saying it, is that, but again, that kind of emphasizes where we are, in our journey. And maybe we might be one of these organizations that never has an office, and I'm still sitting here in my office come playroom in 3 to 4 years time. Who knows? But yeah, that's kind of the reality of the situation. So
yeah, I think it's interesting. I speak to quite a lot of business owners, and obviously I've set up a business myself, and I completely understand your mindset in terms of it's about doing the job and doing it well, keeping it simple. But I often find, and by all means, disagree if you do, that I think people start, and I've set up businesses that have grown and then they've ended up not being here anymore. I think when people have a vision and a dream, when it gets hard, and it is hard, business is hard, it's quite easy to think that maybe isn't achievable. And I've been guilty of that. I think most people I speak to had a vision when they started, and running a business is difficult, and you think, I'm not sure I'm going to get there. And I can definitely tell from how you speak, there's no element of settling. It's about doing the job really well and building a foundation. But I think, I think when it's with, and you're way ahead of, even you talked about, a P&L in the first year. I registered a brand and off I went without a P&L, and I didn't, you just sort of just start. So you clearly, that foundation, I can tell, is why you've got to where you've got, because you've had that foundation in place. You've had a plan. You know where you're trying to get to, and you're going to do it in a way that's measured, and not. You can often push to grow too quickly sometimes and negate what you're all about in your place. That's quality and trust, which you could lose if you were going at too much of a pace. So I think you've got the absolutely perfect, mindset going into your second year almost.
Yeah. It's a good point. And we were to be completely honest with how we set up the organization. We didn't go and seek any external funding sources. We set this up based on our own money. What was in the relatively low reserves, if for want of a better term. And there was a lot of sacrifice, particularly in those first 3 to 6 months. And I think that in itself creates a culture within the organization, is that, that there's not bundles of cash sitting in a reserve pot that we can tap into if things don't go in the right direction for a period of time. This is all organic. This is all personally funded. It's really important that we get this. It's never going to be right 100% of the time. We're going to make mistakes. Of course we are. And we embrace those mistakes and we want to learn from them. But you have to have the quality, and the honesty, I think, is another key part in how we operate. You have to have that. Otherwise you're going to struggle. I'm not sitting here saying I know everything about setting up an organization. Far from it. But for us, I think that's been the key to our, if we can call it success at this stage, but the key to getting us to where we are today has been that mentality and that ability to all pull in that direction, knowing how this was set up, and all being honest with everybody. Okay, what are we going to bring to the party? How is this going to work? What do we want to achieve? Are we all prepared to take this risk? And let's go and do it. So that's where we are, and that's kind of the key, I think, to work to why we are where we are today.
Yeah, I think when I first started, I thought business was more complicated than it probably is. I now just put business down to it's kind of three things: it's marketing your company, operating your company, and collecting the money. That's kind of all business is ultimately. I think getting the second and third, getting that operation bit is key, certainly in a business like yours, for sure. Collecting the money, or we don't get paid, which is key. But obviously, I think we're a marketing business, so I'm going to say it, but I always think marketing is the most difficult and most important and most neglected. I often find part of any business. What do you do within residential living to starting from nothing, building a brand, building their reputation? What is it you do currently to have got yourself to this point?
So it's a very timely question in our journey for RLR, actually, because traditionally, historically, I would scale a team through adding in additional heads. Typically in a recruitment, your biggest asset is the people that work within it. It's a people-driven business, and that's how you would grow. And I think it's a really interesting topic of conversation within the recruitment industry as a whole, marketing and how you market what you do. The process of recruitment is an archaic process. Just from the CV alone, you think of how long has a CV been around. That's a very archaic process, and it's a bit of paper that basically says what people do, right? So from a marketing perspective, we made, and I'll give credit to my business partner on this one. He actually challenged me quite a bit on this. And our second biggest investment, when I say investment, we invested in people to begin with, because you need those people to start. But our second biggest investment is marketing. And that's one of the key learns that I've had over this initial period of time, is actually that's so important, and it's going to continue to be really important for RLR, the marketing piece. So we have a partner that's doing quite a lot of video content for us, and we're building a suite of videos that will start to come online relatively shortly, in the next couple of weeks. And that's a brand new thing for me particularly. And I've seen it in other organizations, but not in the sectors that we operate in, and not really embracing that kind of approaching marketing from a slightly different angle. And I don't just mean putting out a little snippet from an iPhone to say, oh, here's a job, contact Phil. Actually we've put together some really interesting content, which I hope lands pretty well. A little bit tongue in cheek, a little bit fun, a few more serious elements that will come through a little bit later. But that's a long-term partnership that we have with somebody, putting us in front of a camera and really getting to know us and embracing that side of it. So that's one of the key things that we're doing to get our brand out there and to get us out there as individuals, who we are, why we're a bit different, and what RLR is about. And then we've actually invested quite a lot in just content in general, and embracing social media platforms. I've started posting a lot more on LinkedIn than I ever have done before, and I think it's a really important part, particularly for small young organizations that are looking to grow and put themselves out there and let people know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of flavor around the marketing side. Just even building our website, that was a fun experience. We worked with someone that I've known for a very long time. And I think that the kind of mandate was, we want a colourful, kind of vibrant site that shows us, that showcases us, and also reflects our customer base from both a candidate and a client perspective, and not too jargony around all these different terms, and just keep it simple.
Yeah, I think in your world, you talked about trust, building that trust quality in personal brand is something we're working with clients more and more on, because people buy from people ultimately. So as people, key figures in your business, they can glean from you and your personal brand what the business stands for and what sort of how they will be treated and acknowledged within your company. So no, I think you're taking all the right steps, because it's refreshing to hear a company early on in their journey, when as you said, there isn't a huge reserve, but you're doing the right things to make sure people know who you are, where to find you. You would be amazed at how many people I speak to, and you ask what they're doing in terms of marketing, and there's a shrug of shoulders, and they wonder why they're not somewhere on their journey. It's a bit like opening I always try, and lots of businesses are based online now, which is the future. There's often a bit like an analogy of someone opening a bakery and just putting a sandwich board outside the shop and just expecting people to come flooding in. Most people don't even put the sandwich board out. They just start and just wait. But you're proactively building a brand, telling people where you are. No, fantastic. You're absolutely on that journey. It's exciting. I suppose one closing question I have for you now, Phil. This is, I think, really useful for people. Is with your experience, to this point, you're not just in, I need to get the acronym right. What do you call it? RLR. I can't keep saying. I'm going to follow RLR. Yeah. I'll use your terminology.
Residential Living Recruitment. It's a bit lengthy.
No, I like it. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to another business owner, leader, whatever, from all your experience to date?
I could waffle on for ages about this. I think if I was to say one thing to people, setting out or thinking about doing something similar to what I've done, over the past 12 months, is to believe in yourself and to kind of really make sure that you try and take all the noise around you away, because so many people, whether it's online, whether it's LinkedIn content, whether it's friends and family, whether it's ex-colleagues, ex-bosses, everybody has an opinion, and everybody wants to tell you something about how to do something that perhaps they've done a certain way whenever over their careers. And I think it's really important to take that noise as low as you possibly can and just focus on what you want to. You don't want to go out there and create a brand that already exists, right? You don't want to go out and create something that is there and copy somebody else, in essence. yeah, don't get me wrong, take some advice, listen to people. But when you're on this journey of setting out and building your own brand, you've got to ultimately believe in yourself and what you're doing. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter what anybody else is going to say. If you don't believe in number one, you're not going to make it work. So that would be my biggest piece of advice: is listen to number one, believe in yourself, be brave, and take the leap.
Yeah, it's funny what you said there about you don't want to be like somebody else. I've heard a really great quote of, if you just take from one person, it's stealing. But if you take from everybody, it's research. And that's what I would recommend to people when they're starting. You just look at the industry, look at everything, and you can take from everyone. That's research. If you just take from one business, I want to be like them, that's just stealing, and that won't get you where you want to go.
Yeah, you can burn hours, days, weeks, and months in doing all that type of stuff. And I think, I've fallen foul of that previously, and I think you just have to crack on, believe in yourself, and go and do it.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely. So we do make sure people know where they can find you online. So you can find, correct me if I'm wrong, Residential Living Recruitment at rlrecruitment.com. Sounds like it should be my company.
That's right.
There you go, rlrecruitment.com. And we'll make sure there's links in the show
notes.
Work
for us, Rob.
Yeah, it might do. We'll make sure there's links in the show notes and all your social media profiles, and so people can find you. Really enjoyed talking to you, Phil. That's really, really great insights into what you do and how you do it. Is there any last sort of final comments for anyone or anything you'd like to say before we wrap things up? No,
just thanks to you, mate. Obviously, we've known each other since we were 4 years old. So it's quite nice to have a chat with a mate about, who's gone on a similar journey, albeit very different industry, but it's been fun, and thanks for inviting me to do this, Rob.
No, fantastic. Well, you can find all the content in business episodes, including the spotlight sessions at playfmmarketing.com/podcast and on all major podcast platforms. So until next time, thanks everyone for listening. See you next time.